All right. Before we dive into the agenda, I was just wondering if folks could just introduce themselves, your name and your library. And I think we can pretty much, if you can see the participant list, we can sort of do this popcorn style. So I'll start and then pass it over to someone else on the participant list, and we can go for it that way if that works. So good morning. My name is Mark Yoakum. I'm with the South Central Library System, and I will popcorn it over to Sean.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sean Brummer, and I am with the South Central Library System, too. I'm your Youth Services and Community Engagement Consultant. I'm going to pass it to Jess.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jess Bowers. I am social work faculty at UWSP. And I will pop it over to Chris Baker. I see you.
Hi, everybody. I am Chris Baker. I'm the Adult Services Librarian and Technology Coordinator at the Portage Public Library. And I will pass it over to Ching Wong.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ching Wong. I'm the Library Manager at the Goodman South Madison Library, part of the Madison Public Library System. And I will pass it off to Sean Otteson.
Thanks. I'm Sean Otteson. I'm a adult services and community engagement librarian at Central Library, downtown Madison. I'll kick it over to Kara Davies.
I am Kara Davies. I'm the library supervisor at Lakeview, which is another of the Madison Public Libraries. And I will pass it to Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia Spate. I'm the circulation supervisor at Monona. Oh, and oh gosh, who's left? I will pass it to Jane.
Hello, I am Jane Jorgensen, and I also am Madison Public Library. I supervise the Penny and Hawthorne libraries, and I will popcorn it to Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Burkhardt. I'm the director of the Verona Public Library, and I will pass it on to Janelle.
I am Janelle Kaiser, and I am with the Monroe Public Library in Greene County, and I am the senior outreach and programming librarian there. And I will pass it off to Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm having camera trouble. I'm the director at the Monroe Public Library, and I have the honor of working with Janelle. And I will pass it off to, I don't know who's left.
I believe Renee is.
Yep.
Renee.
My name is Renee Daly. I'm the director at the Leicester Public Library of Rome.
Great.
I think that's it.
All right. I believe so. All right. Welcome, everyone. I think we'll start off today with a few updates. Jess, if you'd like to share an update from the School of Social Work.
I'd be happy to. So first of all, it's good to see you all again. I know, or many of you, I recognize your names and faces from the previous time that we met. So thanks for being a part of the meeting again. We have been kind of steadily moving forward and building a partnership between UWSP and our local libraries. You know, Audrey at Madison is also working on building, the partnerships between their social program and libraries as well. So we are not placing any students starting in the fall just yet in the libraries in our area. There's the libraries identified, the libraries kind of in our region, so the Portage County, so Rome, I know you're here right now, sort of the Portage County, Wood County, we're kind of our surrounding counties. The libraries identified kind of their needs, and then I had a small batch of applications, so we're hoping I'll be getting new applications in October, so we're hoping to start placing some students in January in the libraries. One of the things, though, that in order to kind of keep moving forward, and we actually feel like a good place to start is starting with some needs assessments. So I did draft a needs assessment that will hopefully, after you all provide some insight and feedback, will be provided to, I'm sorry, I have a naughty puppy in the back, that will be provided to or distributed to patrons. And then I'm also working on a second survey that will be provided to you all on staff in terms of identifying kind of what some of those unmet patron needs are, as well as some of the supports and resources that you may need, and thinking about ways that our programs can support you all and connect to the community as well. So that is something that I'm hoping once those surveys are finalized, I'm going to go through the IRB process at our university and prepare those for distribution. Some of the ways that we've talked about distributing those patron surveys would be through pop-up on the library computers, emailing out to listserv, as well as having paper copies available for patrons. One of the things that we'll also kind of need to talk about is maybe some particular languages those might need to be in as well. And so that's some thought that we're giving right now to kind of patron surveys, as well as staff surveys, and how we can figure out how our programs can best meet some of the unmet needs you have, and just sort of partner, how social work programs can partner in your libraries. So really excited about where things are going right now. I also recently spoke with our Portage County Library. I'm going to kind of give a presentation to staff at an upcoming sort of I don't know if you guys say in service or whatever you kind of use for your staff training. So we're hoping to fill some needs that way too, in order to provide some support and training related to working with patrons that are experiencing mental health issues, or you're all seeing maybe some increased behaviors, or how are you all connecting folks with resources, and so that's some ways we're also hoping to kind of continue to build on our partners. We have a lot of things we're working on right now, and we feel like these needs assessments are sort of our good foundation to start and collect that data. I know myself, I've been doing a lot of research on kind of library social work, and I've made some ideas of ways that we can help, but I think really so that we are not making assumptions, right? And we can kind of make some data-driven sort of programming and things that have been working in other libraries. So I've learned a lot kind of about librarianship and how social work programs and other social service agencies are assisting libraries in the complex work you're all doing. And some of the work I know are feeling that you're doing that is outside the scope of your training or really your capacity. And so we really hope that we can kind of fill a need for you all, and it's really a mission of our social work programs as well. This is going to serve the community as well. So I will stop there. Sean or Mark, do you have any, or anyone have any questions for me? Or I feel like I'm just babbling a little bit.
You are all good. Yeah.
I'm very excited that you're working directly with Portage County, with Larry and with the branches up in Portage County to do that type of staff in service. And I'm thinking that this might be something down the line that we could offer to more libraries. We haven't talked with our continuing education consultant, Jean Anderson, yet, but we're starting to look at 2023 continuing ed workshops. And Mark and I have been thinking about, in 2021, we had a series of workshops about social work in public libraries, which led to this partnership. And we are kind of kicking around, or I'm kicking around in my head, maybe we have in 2023 another series about social work in libraries, but more specific about trauma-informed care, about how library staff members can take care of themselves, some of the things that Jess, you were just talking about. So nothing to report, but what I am very interested in hearing about is what are your needs for continuing education or for connection when it comes to social service type work, and coming from a library point of view. We have this great connection now with Jess and Audrey at the schools of social work. And I feel like now we have this place where we can describe what we're going through, and Jess and Audrey are going to kind of understand how we can move forward in providing service as library staff members with trauma-informed care and with the connections that we've made. So stay tuned for that. But Jess, you have very much inspired us to think about what else, how else can this project look like? What else will it look like? We're going to have interns in libraries, but this partnership is just, it's growing and it's very exciting.
Sean, could I just add something? One
Sure.
of the things on the staff survey that I'm preparing and hope to have that completed soon is a list of some of the initiatives, and as well as maybe some training and professionals. So I have a list of a range of topics, and then have some space where people could input some ideas they have as well, and sort of what's working well, and then where are sort of some of the what's not working, or what else do you need support in. So I'm really excited to gather that information as well.
Awesome.
So the presentation that Larry sort of asked me to help with on the 8th, and I'm reached out to a couple other community partners, is working with folks that have mental health needs, or they talked about kind of de-escalation techniques. How are we connecting? And gave a couple examples of some incidents recently, and talked about just some more aggression that patrons are showing, and also some confusion about what to do at the end of the day when there's folks in the library that had a couple incidents where they had nowhere to go, and struggling with connecting with some community partners, and just the amount of time that that's taking. Then that of course takes away from being able to serve the larger community. And that's what makes social work and library partnerships so great, is social work's focus on serving more vulnerable or folks with complex issues, and library serving everybody, right? So there is that place for social work to kind of fill some of that need and those resource gaps. So I'm really excited about that, and that's for the first time we'll be doing that. And so I'm hoping that these surveys will generate more ideas, so we can sort of come up with a list of trainings, and potentially make those virtual, that make them accessible to more people, or make them or do some a range of modalities, so more people can experience that too. So thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, Jess, we couldn't do this without you. Thank you for being a system partner and being partners with individual libraries too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. This partnership has just so much potential, and so I'm very happy that it's it's here, and we can work together. If there aren't any more updates from you, Jess, or anyone else on the I think we can go over to check-ins with the cohort libraries. That sounds good.
Yeah, Mark, could I just add one more thing? Because I forgot to mention this as well. And this was an idea, as we think about practicum students or internships, one of the things that Mark had mentioned is just throwing out one other idea recently was thinking about just kind of outside the box a little bit too, in partnership with school districts. So I thought that I've done a little bit of research on how the Department of Public Instruction has summer meal sites set up, and there are some libraries that might benefit from that. And so we're just kind of thinking about larger initiatives that internships can sort of help plan for. So as a student gets placed in a library, having some larger projects, we call them change agent projects often, or legacy projects or passion projects, you know, kind of setting up some of those. That was one idea that was brought, like, is that a good idea? And everybody's libraries have different dynamics and different needs, depending on if you are an urban or rural library. So so that's some things too, just to kind of think about as we think about practicums. What would be some larger projects that you feel like a student could take off someone's plate, or it's something you've thought about but you haven't had the capacity to do? So I just, you know, there's a lot of ways that we can broadly, I think, assist libraries with the unique dynamics and the unique kind of communities that you're all in. You know, there's people here from Rome and downtown Madison. Those are very kind of different, you know, thinking about the needs of that library are going to obviously look different. And I will say, as I continue to do this research around this and really kind of engage in what other folks are doing, there is a lot more sort of resources and research that's been done in urban libraries and not as much on sort of some of those smaller community libraries. And there is just different needs. And so I feel like it will be helpful for us to differentiate between those different needs so that we're serving, this isn't going to be a one size fits all model. So I want you to know we're also thinking about that quite a bit as well. And Audrey and I will have, I think, being their program in Madison and ours in Stevens Point, we're going to be, I'm guessing, serving these in different ways. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was, as we place practicum students, one of the conversations Audrey and I have had is what would be kind of neat is that we set up some regular check-ins with, let's say we have, our program has some library interns placed and the Madison program has some, and we do some joint virtual connection where we're bouncing ideas off each other, and those students get to kind of share what they're doing and bounce those ideas and projects off one another. We do sort of some group kind of supervision and discussion too, so that this can be, I think, you know, as effective as possible, and as we really want this to be a win-win. So I'll just leave it there for now, but that's some other kind of things we've just been, since we last talked, we've been kind of fermenting in a number of ideas related to how we can, our students can connect, our programs can connect, and we can serve just sort of the diverse community libraries that exist in our area.
That's great. And it really is very much what the public library system is about too, that, you know, we serve libraries of different sizes and in different communities, but we do bring people together and we all learn from one another. So we're very familiar with that type of program or project. And I think it would be so great for the students to have that experience to connect with one another. It would just be, wow, like going to two universities, and it would be so beneficial for the libraries too. So I am wondering, we don't have Audrey on the call with us right now, but I want everybody to know, and Mark, you might have more information about this, that Audrey is working with identifying students to be in the libraries in the southern part of the county, especially Madison Public Library. I know we have a lot of Madison staff here, so I wanted to just fill you in that even though Stevens Point, UW Stevens Point, we don't have students from that department working directly in libraries, that we will, and we are from Madison. Mark, do you have anything, any updates or any clarification?
So the only update or clarification is I seem to recall that she'll have an idea of students and placements on or around the 26th, so July 26th. So libraries in the southern regions might receive an update on that in the nearest future.
Thanks, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, next week. So within the next couple of weeks, we will see a different type of movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. All right. So in the let's see. So I think let's why don't we do a check-in with the libraries or with folks, and I think we could do it another popcorn style, just essentially how's everything going at your library, and how are you doing? So anyone who wants to begin that popcorn can certainly jump right in.
I can start.
And who is this?
This is Amelia at Monona.
Oh, thank you. I
I had
didn't
my
see
mask on, so I wasn't moving my mouth. I don't really think I have anything to report except for that I want to share excitement about just presenting at an in-service, because I do think that that's kind of a concept that we had in mind for our potential intern. And also what Jess mentioned about just like helping us connect to resources, because I think I haven't necessarily even done a good job of making my staff aware of the programs in my community, because I just don't even like always connect those dots naturally of like, I know that Monona Grove has a volunteer run like food program for kids in the summer, but I don't know that I've told everyone on staff that, and maybe it'd be good for them to know. So definitely it's going to be a good partnership to help us connect those dots.
Great, thank you.
And Amelia, you bring up something that has come up over and over again. When somebody is in front of me at the public service desk, how do I assist them? Where do I go? And that is one of the projects that we were talking about for an intern, right? To create a directory of resources. So it's very library centered, but I'm imagining like, food insecurity, housing, mental illness, that would be something that would be helpful for all libraries, knowing that the libraries in Rome are going to be different than libraries down in Monona and the Madison area. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yep, thank you. Amelia, did you want to popcorn it over to someone?
Sure, I will popcorn to Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few different thoughts on this. So forgive me if I end up rambling. The first thing I suppose is regarding the idea of libraries being able to have a more accessible network of resources to refer folks in need to. I think that's probably a very common need in a lot of libraries, that there isn't necessarily a practical sort of infrastructure already set up yet in a library where it's really easily accessed by staff to be able to refer folks for different specific needs. Mark and I have worked on a number of different projects in the past. The one that I would, I feel like I talk a lot about, but I'd refer folks to if they were curious, is we created a referral group that includes our local Health and Human Services, our homeless shelter, Work Smart Network, which is a job development or a job training and workforce development organization. And we call ourselves the Portage Area Workforce and Service Connection. It's right on our website. You're able to go to it and be able to see, we have a Google Sheet spreadsheet that does exactly what Sean was sort of indicating, of breaking things down into these different categories, whether it's about food care, whether it's about child care, transportation, et cetera. And I think that's something that we already have a little bit of a template at that we'd be, of course, willing to share. Anything that'll help any other library or organization or whatever is amazing. And it's been very successful, and we're tracking our referrals monthly now. All of our group meets monthly and communicates about program updates in our various necks of the woods. And so that's really helping, I think, hopefully holistically address some of these community-wide issues. It was interesting, I was recently on our Columbia County Community Health Input Stakeholder Meeting, where it's about local service heads and leaders trying to identify priorities and therefore design a 5-year health plan for the county, right? And through a data walk that we did, that was an outside organization that facilitated, they recognized 3 priorities that came up for our area. One was mental health issues, one was substance use disorder issues, which the person doing the data walk had indicated they see at almost every single one of these as the top 2, right? So we know that these are crucial needs among urban, rural populations everywhere, right? And the third one, though, that she said she hadn't seen before, which she thought was surprising, was a lack of communication between possible partner agencies. And so I think that just kind of hits exactly what we're talking about here, is the ability to facilitate better communication among different service organizations and agencies that are able to do different things and therefore can meet different needs that one individual agency might not be able to meet, right? So on that note, I would say, I think that there's 4 real crucial logistical needs for folks in our neck of the woods in Portage, right? Portage is a mid-sized city, rural city close on the outskirts of Madison, but we still have a lot of the issues and needs that are not being met that we can struggle to meet, especially in a low-funded rural county, right? And I would say that there are some real practical logistical needs that we need to focus on being able to have somebody like a social worker help connect folks with that librarians and library staff can't necessarily use their time to do. A, because it would be a monopoly of our time, but B, there's sometimes this confidentiality and privacy issues that prohibit us from diving too deep into some of these things. But things like transportation is huge, right? We don't have public transportation in Portage, but the ability to facilitate transportation that could potentially connect folks with places like Madison, in affordable ways, that means that job care opportunity or job search opportunities open up hugely, right? And now we have both communities benefiting. Communication is another big one. A lot of folks don't have a cell phone. So the ability for somebody to get somebody set up with SafeLink or one of the other cell phone providers is a big deal. I think childcare is massive, right? Because we know that it all works as a system. And if a social work intern could help explore childcare options in the area for folks, if they can get affordable childcare, then they can work. And of course, the fourth one, I think, that everybody knows is kind of a crisis everywhere right now, is housing. You can't house somebody unless there's housing available, but you also need sometimes people to do the logistical work of just going about actually searching for housing and trying to connect folks with resources. So I think those are 4 pretty crucial needs, at least for us in a mid-sized rural city that I think there is certainly some crossover with urban populations, more metropolitan populations as well. So yeah, I think that between the service referral network component of this and those kind of logistical needs, we need to have people help us attack on a person by person individual basis, right? Because it's like, when you're working in a library and somebody comes in and needs help, it's not just, oh, you're one of XYZ population that needs help. It's like you're an individual who has walked in who has individual problems. And unfortunately, that takes up a lot of time for us to be able to try to solve on an individual basis. So having a social work intern that can offer that type of individual care and we can connect somebody directly with somebody that can help is everything. The other thing I suppose I would just add as a little caveat to all of this too is, I think we all have to recognize, whether you're coming from the social work part of this or from the library part of this, right, is it's going to be slow going at first. There's definitely going to be some growing pains in terms of these communications working out and these projects coming to full fruition. Mark and I have also been working with the state of Wisconsin on some training for WISHRM, which is the Wisconsin something acronym, Human Resources Volunteers, right? The idea of connecting these human resources volunteers with libraries in a not dissimilar way to what we're talking about, so that way they can help with job searching and education in libraries as well. And what we're already seeing is, libraries are unsure of, in some cases, how to respond to a new potential opportunity to partner with somebody because everybody's stressed, everybody's busy, people don't know exactly how the logistics of these things will work. So I think that for all of us involved in this process, it'll just be good for us to bear in mind that we'll probably go through something similar, and it'll be some growing pains as we figure out how these stuff all works. So that's kind of my thoughts on stuff. But
thank you, Chris. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you bring up a good point to recognize that growing pains are inevitable. Would you like to popcorn it over to someone else, to another person?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to stick with Ching Wong again because that's who I, I did the first time. So yeah.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris mentioned, we have similar problems where we have individuals who have challenging situations. And I think we've been kind of working on helping staff set boundaries, because a particular individual will come in and really need your help, but how much help can you give that individual? So we've been kind of working on that. But I think the big thing is giving our staff tools, to say this is what I can do for you, and this and I think also having an intern may also help, that we can actually pass it on, because it gets stressful for staff to be able to handle that, as well as take care of the other people that need help. That's not social issues that they're dealing with, rather than just takes away from the library stuff. So I think giving staff tools on how to set boundaries, how to take care of themselves, and being able to say no and not feel guilty about it, because I think a lot of us feel like we go over and beyond, trying to help a person and get them where they need to be, and that's always difficult, to be able to say no, I can't help you any longer, or this is what we can provide for you. But I do want to mention that somebody from the UW did contact me, the field study instructor. So I'll be meeting with her for a possible placement at Goodman. And I don't know if any of my other MPL colleagues have been contacted by the same person or a different person. But it sounds like they are reaching out, at least the UW School of Social Work, someone's reaching out. So that's good news. And I guess I will pass it off to Jane Jorgensen.
Ching. I think Ching covered some of the stuff that Madison is doing. We had EAP come in and do the boundary training for us. They talked as people who do social work, and how to set those boundaries. And no, Ching, I haven't heard anything yet from anybody at the UW, but I've been off for a couple of weeks, so it's perhaps they tried calling. But yeah, the boundary training, de-escalation training. We also have benefited here in Madison. During the pandemic, the Madison Police Department partnered with mental health professionals, and they now have what's called a CARES team. It's similar to the one out in Portland, that is, we can call 911 or non-emergency and say that we have somebody in the library who's having some mental health issues, and can they send the CARES team instead of getting police response. You get a mental health person. You might get a police officer who's one of the mental health trained officers, as long as the situation's not deemed dangerous. If it's dangerous, then police, of course, would come. But we have found that that's been a big help these last 6 months or so, that we can call for somebody who, because often they're familiar with our customers who might be having difficulties. They have been a big help for us in not having to call for police as frequently as we had in the past, which was our only option if somebody was really struggling on any particular day. But we've also been trying to train staff in those techniques that Ching mentioned. Backup training we've done with our staff, backing up your coworkers when the situation's tough, the boundary training and the de-escalation training. And then I would just say, in terms of what we're seeing in Madison, and it varies from location to location because we are spread across the city, But we are certainly seeing, it seems like an uptick in people with mental health stressors going on in their lives. Certainly an uptick, big uptick in drug use. I won't speak to, I don't see as many kids, middle school kids at my libraries, which I know is a concern at some of my other locations in Madison. But yeah, we are seeing, I don't know if it's pandemic, economy, it's probably a combination of all of those things, but it really has jumped up the number of drug-related incidents and mental health-related incidences that we're seeing in our libraries. And with that, I will bump it to Kara, who does see more kids at her library. Kara works at MPL as well.
Thanks, Jane. I'm at Lakeview Library on the north side of Madison. And yeah, piggybacking on what Ching and Jane have both said, I think the time is ripe for this. Just the services that we do offer, we've had really good experience with Dane Core, who offers rental assistance. We've had the Tenant Resource Center in, we have a vaccine clinic, and also thinking about some of the reactive things that we do with behavior issues and banning and mediation of those things. It'd be nice to think about getting ahead of those things and notice the common threads with people who are in for lots of these different services, and what can we do to be preventative instead of reactive. And again, boundaries is a big issue, and we all want to help as much as we can, but knowing what those boundaries are and what the limits of what we can offer are, it'd be nice to have a social work intern in specifically who can maybe identify some of those common themes and threads and help us continue referring and knowing what we can offer and really being responsive to what the community needs in the moment, you know. And we're seeing a little bit of uptick in drug use and challenges with that. And while it has been an improvement to see the responsive the CARES team from the police, it'd be nice not to have to get to that point. So really looking forward to having that social work consultation. And I will pass it to Sean at Central.
Thanks, Kara. Yeah, everything that Kara and Jane and Ching said in terms of like some of the things that we've had to deal with. I think with Central Library, because of our proximity to other like services, especially those services that benefit people experiencing homelessness. So with the Beacon and the Salvation Army, and then the men's porch light shelter, we're also kind of on the verge of some kind of big changes happening on this side of town, particularly with the potential ending of the vulnerable persons hotel program, which just got extended to the end of August. And then there's the movement of the men's shelter from the First Street location out to Zaire Road, a temporary location on Zaire Road. That's going to be happening, I think, within the next couple of months. So doing a kind of a needs assessment of like what kind of services Central Library could provide in order to help people has been kind of challenging, because we're sort of in the midst of all these kind of big shifts and changes. And I know Hawthorne Library, I think, is experiencing a lot of these things. These kind of, you know, sort of movements, especially people a little bit farther to the east and near east and then east side. So yeah, I think having a social work intern to kind of help us with either with needs assessments or some training modules for staff here to how to deal with, or not deal with specifically, but how to help people with specific mental health needs, I think is going to be absolutely, I think, crucial in the months coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then who else hasn't spoken yet? Let's see. Suzanne.
Thanks, Sean. I'm sitting here feeling like we're operating on a much smaller scale here in Monroe, which may be true, but that doesn't mean that we don't face some of the issues. Some of the same issues. We're really looking forward to working with the social work intern, so we can have like the proper protocols in place, how to direct people to the right places, even if those places aren't necessarily in our community. And I feel like I'm very confident that we can execute those and work with our patrons who need these services after we have some assistance in kind of setting up some protocols. In terms of what we're doing right now, I think we're working on more of a micro scale, thinking about individual patrons and their individual needs, people coming in with mental illness or cognitive issues and not understanding the rules of the library or having difficulty abiding by them. We're doing a really good job, I think, of helping those individual patrons. And I think that my circulation coordinator especially has really bent over backwards to understand how important the library is in their lives and make sure that they maintain a good relationship with the library and keep those services available to them. And I think other staff are really buying into that. So it's been a good thing, but we're looking forward to expanding what we're doing with the help of the intern.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Sure.
I'm going to jump in and just point out that one of the things that we're seeing and that you all are definitely confirming is the need for support or help for circulation staff. Circulation staff are, they're the most visible. They're the ones who we think of when we go into public libraries. So I just want to point that out. If any of you have had some, specific training or ideas about circulation, we have Amelia here who is a circ supervisor. I think that's something that I really want to think about moving forward to is what are the unique needs of different departments, especially circulation, who, circ staff did not sign up to be social workers. They signed out to, get materials back and forth. So thank you. I just wanted to point that out, that that's something that we're very aware of.
Thank you. I will hand it off to Janelle.
Great, thanks, Suzanne. How did I know that was going to happen? I agree with what Suzanne had said, and the only thing that I could possibly add from a Monroe perspective is I see, and what you've already said too, about being more proactive versus being reactive. I think that's an important element. In Greene County, we have a Greene County Healthy Communities Coalition. We have the Greene County Services. We have Family Promise, we have our men's resource shelter. So we have resources in Greene County to help folks who are in need. And there's a loosely built support web that the library is a part of. I would like that social work intern to bring the library into a more engaged support network. Not just that loosely thing like, oh, hey, maybe we should contact this person or contact that organization, but that there's already that communication that's been built between all of these organizations. They've met, they've discussed goals, and they're working towards them. That's what I would like to dream about for our social work intern. Thank you. And who hasn't talked yet? I will pass it off to, Has Stacy from Verona?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm very excited about the idea of the surveys, the needs assessment. I think that's really important. And then also the staff training component. I'm sure we're similar to a lot of libraries. We've seen a lot of staff turnover recently, post or during the pandemic, and as whatever stage we're in right now. And so that would be really helpful, I think, to do some of that de-escalation training again, and, you know, hit some of our newer staff members who haven't had an opportunity to go through anything like that. And I guess in terms of what we're seeing here, not a lot of behavior issues lately, not a lot of mental health stuff, but I know ongoing, a huge issue in Verona is the lack of affordable housing, and also food insecurity. So those are some of the kind of the things we're looking at here. And I will pass it off to Renee.
Thank you. I know that Rome is considered a very small rural library. And most of the time, you know, our population is around 2,600, but with summer, this becomes a tourist area. And right now, I think our population is around 12,000, which is a huge difference. We've had a lot of the same issues that everyone here has been talking about today. For me, I know like currently right now, we're working with Adams County Health Department. We are providing free lock boxes because drug use has increased dramatically in this county. Mental health issues have increased dramatically. We're also trying to provide free COVID tests because many of our seniors, our clinic here closed in Rome. And they don't want to drive to a different clinic for a test. So we're trying to work with that. And we have instances, for example, in the past 2 weeks, we've had a grandparent drop off a grandchild and then just left. And my staff was, you know, coming to me like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, let's, you know, the girl did not want to talk. She didn't want to give us her name. We'd never seen her. We didn't know the grandparent. So I think not only do we need some training when a situation like that occurs, I mean, we do have the police department here, but if the child isn't going to speak, they're in the same situation. I also think it's important. I would like my staff to have training, but I feel, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think my library board needs to be included in some training. When I'm in a board meeting and I talk to my board about some of the things that my staff has to see on a regular basis, many of my library board members look at me and say, well, that doesn't happen in Rome. And it's like, but it does happen here. And, you know, maybe in the social group you are in, that's not occurring, but that's a daily occurrence in this community. And I think my library board members need to be included in some of this training as well. I think it would be very beneficial to my staff, to myself, and to the library to have them included.
Thank you, Renee. I want to point out that, and we'll send links to everybody, that the trustee training week continuing education programs are coming up in August.
Yep.
And a few of those sessions are going to be about social service types of programs for library board members so that they're aware of it. I'm really glad Jess was here to hear that portion of today's meeting, because that's something that I know I have experienced when I've gone out and worked with boards on DEI issues and just helping set up values and vision, that sometimes there is that disconnect between very well-meaning board members, but not really understanding the community needs and the types of services that library staff are providing.
Sean, I was looking for the hand raise button and it's like disabled or something, but I was wondering if it might be my, or I don't, maybe it's just my computer today. I was wondering if was there anyone, was that everyone? I was just had one, a couple comments on what folks said, but unless there was someone left that we missed.
I was looking through that too. Yeah, has anyone not shared an update or a check-in.
I think we have everybody.
I was just going to add, if I could, I was just
Thanks,
going to add one
Chris.
more thing too. As a response, everybody was talking about drug usage and substance use disorder being a big issue. I know there are also organizations within communities that are trying to meet this need too. And this gets into a larger conversation about what a librarian's role is and whether or not a librarian should put themselves in this position. But I figured I would mention that, like, for example, in Columbia County, we've got a group called the Prevention and Response Columbia County. And what they are going to be doing, working with us in the near future to supply us with a Narcan box that we're going to have above our AED in our library. So I'm going to go through Narcan training and stuff. Obviously, it's pretty scary, messy business to talk to whether or not librarians are going to be putting themselves in that position. But just as to recognize that if we're talking about meeting some of these substance use disorder needs, that's maybe also wants to be on the table as Narcan training in libraries.
Mm-hmm.
I also just wanted to, sorry, Jess, before you jump in, second that a big thing for me is something Chris said a while ago, which is I don't think librarians know what our role is when it comes to privacy in some of these issues. Like, we've definitely, luckily, hopefully they're doing well, but before the pandemic, there were some children who I think were experiencing some food insecurity, but it was also being read as like inappropriately asking for money at the library. And I don't think our staff knew how much we could talk to these kids about their lives at home. And I do feel that way sometimes now about housing and people saying, like, when they get a temporary pass for the internet, well, I don't have an address right now. And we've been really flexible with them, but we haven't taken that extra step of saying, can I help you find some resources? Because we don't know if we're allowed to go past that, like, you know, respecting their lives boundary. And I do think it also comes into what some other folks here have talked about today, like how much our staff shouldering that also. But I really think the privacy thing is a big point of confusion for me at this intersection of librarianship and social work.
Oh, and I'm just going to put in a comment from the chat.
I would just thank you, Amelia, and everyone for your comments. I do want to say this is really helpful for me. I'm sort of keeping a list. I do think, and when you talk about the turnover, it is clear that librarians and library staff are at risk of burnout, and that you are shouldering more. And it's easy, I think, sometimes to think, well, this is the police officer's role, or, you know, if someone drops a child off all day at a library, this is maybe Child Protective Services needs to be contacted, or how much do we ask, or how much do we help, or this is really time consuming. And it's just a lot easier to say, well, pass that off to someone else. But if you are seeing some of the same folks every day and you develop a relationship, or I heard Renee talk about how there is the clinic closed, right? So sometimes there's just not, you said our communities are resource deprived as well. So I think one of the things I'm, as you know, our brains are sort of spinning is I've been reading a lot about communities that folks come in and host office hours at the library. But I think I heard someone say, and I don't know if that was you, Chris, or someone mentioned the time it takes to sort of, sometimes we're just so in the weeds that we can't always sort of plan out what would be helpful for us and how do we facilitate connecting with these resources, but then also inviting them in to maybe have a private location where they can offer some office hours. So maybe that's a way some of the programs, social work programs, can sort of even help facilitate that, where maybe an intern, they don't have maybe the expertise in some particular areas, but a compilation of different service providers could come into some libraries on a regular basis to provide some office hours, and that they know they're coming, right? So how can social work programs, how can we facilitate some of that on your behalf? And in terms of like kind of setting those good boundaries, like where does my role end, right? And also mandated reporting. I don't know if you're all mandated report. Those are all trainings that, you know, are you mandated reporters? What does that look like? Do you need that training, or do you need to know what that look, you know? So
we are not mandated reporters.
Okay. And sometimes that training though is just helpful to have either way. Like if you decide you need to make an adult protective service referral or a child protective, those are all kind of topics that I'll include in this. I'm finalizing a staff survey that I'll include on MetaWells that I think would be just good information for us to have. And as you're experiencing that turnover, how do we provide trainings in a way that you're re-upping kind of the new folks so they know. So I have found this conversation just incredibly helpful, because you're right. Like, what is your role? What is, what your role is to serve the public, and you have particular training and qualifications, and it sounds like being asked to do a lot of things you don't have training. I don't have training in some of the things you're listing, right? Or qualifications in. So I think this is wonderful for me to put together some of the information you're saying to our staff needs assessment, and go for how are we going to support you all, and how are we going to build on this partnership. I think it's a big win-win. So that's all I'll say at the moment. Sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to comment.
Thank you, Jess.
Great.
This was very helpful for me, and I'm assuming Mark, Mark
Yeah.
and me, for thinking about how are we going to move forward. I'm hearing this need for training, not only for current staff, but what might staff training look like for our brand new staff members who are coming on board in public libraries? Maybe that's something that we could work on. How to train new library staff members so that they're not afraid, but so that they feel, safe and empowered to provide information and assistance. And that's what we're hearing across the board, looking for examples of what can I say. This idea of scripts and what can I say is coming up across the board. So this has been probably a highlight of my summer. This meeting is really providing some direction for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have 1 minute left.
The SCLS updates is just right there. Those are the links to the webinars and resources that we've held last year. I would like to turn it back over to Jess about the needs assessment survey.
Yeah, really briefly, I will just mention that I drafted a patron survey that would go out to patrons. I want to say two things about that. The last question I've edited, it's worded wonky, so please note, but you get the gist. Secondly, what's missing from the survey is the beginning, just sort of introduction and a note to patrons that it's an anonymous survey and their identity is not available in the search. So they would take this anonymously and their identity is protected. So there's a little bit of disclaimer missing, but I was hoping that you all who are kind of, front lines at the libraries, the circulation folks, and you all would be able to look and see, is this meeting if I'm missing the mark in anything or anything you feel like. I'd love some feedback. So I'm going to put my email in the chat if that's easiest, Mark, so you don't have to be sort of the middleman in that.
Sure.
If you take a look at that, and you want to just give me a little bit of feedback, my hope is that I've got to go through IRB and we'd have that ready to go by the fall. It's just jbowers@uwsp.edu. And again, the last question needs further editing, and then so there's sort of an introduction that's missing that as well, but the content is complete at this point, or is drafted. So okay, that's all I want to say. I just want to thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jess. And I think I was really interested in what are you seeing? And I think we all heard about that. Thank you, everybody, for sharing what is going on in your libraries. This will help us create programs and, direct the interns when they're working. So we will get the minutes out.
Yeah.
Chris, yep, we'll get the minutes out. I am recording. I'm going to stop the recording right now. If anything comes up, please let one of us know. Reach out to each other, because those of you who are in libraries are doing the work. And